Hey, real quick, before we get into that episode, do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. That way you don't miss out on any marketing nuggets. Enjoy the show.
Everyone has value.
Yeah.
That is literally the gold in networking. Everyone can provide some kind of value to you, whether it's directly or indirectly, because networking is a long game. Down the line, they start to bring your name up in different rooms and they start to think about you and associate you for opportunities.
Hi, I'm Josh Owen. As the owner of a video marketing company in New Orleans, I've been on the quest to learn everything I can about marketing. Everyone has a different style, different strategy, and a different experience. Is there a wrong way to do it? A right way to do it? Let's find out together as we make marketing make sense. Welcome back, everybody, to another fantastic episode of Make Marketing Make Sense. Today, I'm joined by the wonderful, the magnificent, magnanimous Kristen Dufauchard from aKrewe NOLA.
Yes.
Really, just taking it like community to the next level. And today we're specifically talking about networking and really just like, to get rid of the nerves, how like a lot of people hate it. A lot of people love to hate it. And a lot of people look at it and go, oh, I'm out of here. And so, but you're here to help us work through that. So thanks for joining me.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Josh. I'm really excited to be here. Talk about networking, how people can overcome the fear and make it one of their favorite things to do.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, just to start, like someone that's afraid, like talk to me, like how do you, like if you were to really, from your perspective, if I come to you and I'm like, I hate networking, I'm afraid of it. What would you say to someone like that? What would you help them through? What would be some of your tips and guides for that person?
Yes. So the first thing I would suggest is that people practice. You have to get comfortable with something that you're uncomfortable with. And the only way to do that is through practice, right?
Yeah.
So aKrewe NOLA is an impact driven marketing agency, and we host social networking events here in New Orleans for people who are interested in overcoming that networking fear and developing their personal brand amongst peers. Yeah. So we in particular have become very popular for our Mingle Bingo. So those are discussion prompts that help break the ice. All throughout college, I coined the term networking queen, icebreaker queen, because I always had a prompt ready. Yeah. So that's another tip, is to always think of something that gets people talking. Yeah. If you ask them about their business, ask them about their dog, their kids, ask them about their passions, it's something that usually lights people up, and aKrewe creates a space for those conversations to happen, to start forming genuine connections.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot agree with that more. I think that everybody has recognized that deer in the headlights moment when you're like standing there with someone, you're like, what do I say? What do I do? And so, if you, just like anything in life, when you have that moment of that blank, you have to go back to your training. And so networking, like anything, is all about training, and you need to be trained, and you need to train your brain to have something to rely on, like you're saying, is to practice that. And so that's great that you have opportunities for people to practice. So, people be staying tuned. You're going to find out more about what aKrewe NOLA does. But yeah.
Absolutely.
But, and so also on top of that, what about, in specific mindset wise, like what do you suggest people do for their mindset with networking, to really help improve that aspect of their game, I guess, networking game?
Yes. So with the mindset, I would say it's twofold, right? First of all, be bold. And second of all, be open. Yeah. So the being bold piece is really just not being afraid to have no as an answer, because if you don't ask, if you don't go for it, you're telling yourself no. And that's something that we should not be doing in entrepreneurship. Yeah. And so the second piece about being open is not getting tied to any one specific outcome. This is something I've had to learn along my entrepreneurial journey, my professional career, is just to really make sure that I'm not attached to any one outcome. And that actually helps things become a lot more fluid and flexible in terms of how a partnership can work out, how an opportunity can work out. And so with networking, be bold, be open, and really just receive what's next.
Yeah, man. So much resonation going on here. I'm like, exactly. Because my thing is so the bold piece, especially, I love that, because from my perspective, we all want friends. We all want to be friends with people. We want to connect with people. We're humans. We're social beings. Absolutely. And so sometimes we forget that that person standing across from me, wants to connect with people just as much as I want to connect with people. And so, be bold. And like, my perspective is also just like, pretend like they are your friend already. The more you are already feeling like they're your friend, the more that energy can carry you forward to that through the conversation and get to that next level. So I think that's awesome.
Absolutely. And when you have, I think, your predetermined icebreakers, that's very helpful because you're used to asking people these questions, right? Anything from, I'll just use some of the examples from our icebreaker. What project management system do you use? Do you use one? Have you ever ridden a streetcar? Do you eat crawfish? I actually have a shellfish allergy. So people are always very interested to dive deeper into the fact that I'm from New Orleans and I cannot eat my favorite food, which is crawfish. So talk about an icebreaker, right? A conversation opener.
So I know you have all these great icebreaker questions. You ever tailor them to specific industries or situations for the people that come through that you work with?
Absolutely. So if there's ever an opportunity for you to conduct research before entering a room, I would always say take the opportunity. If there's a list of who's going to be there, who's showing up, who's speaking on a panel, there's a really good opportunity for you to research someone that you've been meaning to get in touch with. Figure out if they've published any recent articles, what are some of the milestones in their careers, what happened recently as a life event, and tailoring those questions to talk about them and talk about how they can potentially influence the work that you're doing and come in with your ask after that.
That's great. And I think again, like people will feel flattered to know that you know something about them going towards it. So it's like you especially also, and this is the thing that people take for granted, is just being able to recognize like, hey, I want to talk to this person. I know what to do once I get those people, like once I get a relationship, once I start building it. And so I know one of the things that you've also talked about is like the art of the follow-up is really what we're talking here. And so like, what are your suggestions for that? How do you first of all, describing kind of what your vision is for it and really why do it and how is it important?
So the art of the follow-up is really that piece of the relationship building that I think is the most important. You're able to summarize what the conversation was, and it's a sticking point to get your contact to remember you. So for me personally, I like to the same day follow up. Hi, my name is Kristen. These are some of the things that we talked about. This is what my ask is, and this is what I can offer you, which we can also talk about the ask and offer method that I love to implement. Yes. And so with following up, I think it's very important because we all have so many things going on throughout the day, the week, the month, the year. And it's so easy for a short moment in time to be forgotten. And so once you solidify an email trail, a text message trail, something so people start to associate your name with an experience, I think that's very important. And that's what the art of the follow-up is. So making sure that you not only have that first touch base, but you're keeping in touch throughout time.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I guess one of the things that in particular that, and sometimes I worry about is feeling like I'm not asking too much or like knowing what to say in that follow-up. And so what is some of your guidelines that you go for when you're writing these follow-ups to the people that you meet?
Yes, simple formula. I make sure that I reintroduce myself and my brand. I use a few points of what we discussed. Was it, the new dog that they got? Was it the promotion they received at work? Was it that new grant that they were able to score? So talking about some of the things that we discussed in our in-person conversation, just to jog memory. And then I'll give a recap of how we can move forward. What was in the relationship? What was in the conversation that will help propel the relationship forward? Was that me coming in to do some work as a potential client? Was that them coming in and sitting on a panel that I'm hosting? What was the ask that was presented in the conversation, and also what I offered that could be beneficial for them?
Yeah, that's awesome. And in particular, I know some people are probably going to ask the questions themselves, like, do I really need to do it the same day? Was like the next day fine?
The
or
timing.
What's the timing?
Yes.
What are those windows, I guess, for people to put themselves in?
Yes, the timing is always the question that people ask.
Yeah.
And I think with the timing, it's really up to you. If you think you had a really memorable conversation, I wouldn't let too long pass, but feel it out and see what feels right to you. Now, personally, I like to follow up the same day. If it was an evening networking event, I'm up with my laptop and I am sending emails and maybe scheduling them out for the next morning. But that day, while it's fresh in my mind, I'm writing everything down. So that way I can make sure I'm clearly jogging their memory about the experience they had
Especially if it's important to you. I mean, that makes
absolutely.
sense.
Absolutely. If it's really important, I'll send it that night.
Hey, let's get this in there, you know? Yeah.
But they understand the dedication and the passion that you have behind driving the relationship.
Right. No, for sure. I mean, and I definitely agree with that. And I know, you know, going into that, because I'm curious, because you mentioned in that email how like you're tailoring it to your conversation.
Yes.
But then that got me thinking, you know, in your conversation with people when you're networking, how long, you know, do you try and keep that conversation? You know, some people think like, okay, you know, I want to keep it, you know, 5 minutes, or, you know, maybe some people think that you really want to develop a really big relationship with that person, you know, and some people are like, oh, once I know that person's not my target demographic, I'm out. Like, don't get me in there. You know, I'm like, you know, if you're a financial advisor, give me away, you know? So I guess like, what are your thoughts on all of that?
Yeah. So in person, I like to really pay attention to a lot of body language. I think the nonverbal cues are a huge thing when you're networking. Yeah. If you can tell that people are disengaged, you can go ahead and wrap up the conversation, follow up, make sure you get the business card, which is very important to stay in touch. And then, you know, you all can go your separate ways. You can try again with the digital communication follow up. But I think in person, you can tell when someone is engaged in the conversation you're having. And so keep it going. If it's flowing, keep going, keep talking about it. And then, you know, being mindful to disengage very gracefully.
Yeah. And I guess at all in that, do you ever worry about whether or not they fit your business goals, or your, like, if you are having a good conversation, but they're not like your target demographic, you know, do you feel like you want to keep that conversation going, or like, what are your thoughts there?
Well, I mean, if there's not a direct connection that you can find, the good thing about networking is it's about who someone else knows. So tapping into their network. So even if they're not directly related to your business goals or your industry, they may know someone that is.
Right.
So asking for a referral or asking for another connection is always a great way to disengage. If you can't help me in particular, can you put me in touch with someone that can do X, Y, and Z for me?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, networking in itself, you know, and everyone has their network, you know, and so tapping into that, I think, is key. So, yeah, I mean, absolutely. 100%. If like everyone has value and everyone is, you know, an individual that you can really, you know, not take for granted, you know, and I think people resonate with that once they start to develop that relationship with you.
For sure. So. And I think you said a key thing too, Josh, is everyone has value.
Yeah.
That is literally the gold in networking. Everyone can provide some kind of value to you, whether it's directly or indirectly, because networking is a long game. I always tell people that it may not be instantaneous benefits to you, but down the line, as relationships flourish, as they get stronger, as people associate you with certain things, they start to bring your name up in different rooms, and they start to think about you and associate you for opportunities.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head there too, which is value, which, you know, and I think we all take that for granted too, is like we all have value, but more importantly, you and as the individual has value too.
Yes.
And I think that's the thing that we forget about is also, and what you mentioned before, is you don't just ask people for value, but you try and give them back value as well, which I think is a big key piece that a lot of people miss. You know, what do you mean by that when you say like, you know, it's important to give people value?
Yes. So at aKrewe, one thing that we really lean on in our community is that we want to use the ask and offer method. And so that is really an opportunity for people to pour into the community. What is your ask? Are you looking for new clients? Are you looking for a new building space? Are you looking for a venue for an event? But then offering something back. I can offer you a strategy. I can offer you a contact. I can offer you, you know, a recommendation or a referral. Yeah. So these are things that help make relationships less transactional and more nurturing and very organic, because you're able to rely on one another and see each other as partners as opposed to just a means to an end.
Yeah, no, I definitely like that. And in particular, are you what kind of, I guess, in what ways do you typically suggest for people to provide that value?
Yes.
You know, what do you think, you know, a lot of people think, well, I don't think I have anything to offer, but sometimes.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I always just say, what are you good at, or what can you provide? What is it that you know something you have a little bit more insight into than someone else? And that is your value. Whether that is, for me, my background is in marketing. I've worked in marketing for 14 years. I can provide strategy, insight, insight, referrals to different platforms or programs. But I'm not as well versed in the financial sector. So maybe I need someone to make a referral to me. I haven't used Premiere Pro in probably maybe a decade.
Oh, all right. Well, hey, you know what it is? That's pretty good. All right. I'll tell you that much.
So, but I may have minimal insight, but working with someone that's in the video industry can give me a lot more insight because that's your forte.
Yeah. And one of the things you said very early on was that, I think is the other part of it that people take for granted with value is being open to listening, and hearing where the value can be given.
Yes.
And I think we think about it, we think, oh, I don't know where I can give value, but if you start listening to what their problems are and what they're going through, chances are there's something will kind of catch, in a sense. And I think that's great.
And I think you just described listening between the lines.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not a perfect puzzle piece, but keeping in the back of your mind that someone is looking for a particular opportunity or, someone listening to you that you're looking for something in particular is how I think the most beautiful part of networking happens when people speak your name in rooms that you are not in. This has happened to me recently. It's happened to me frequently because I'm very vocal about what it is that I do and what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about entrepreneurship and helping people be successful in their businesses. Yeah. And so that's how I started doing the Culture, Commerce, and Connection events, this networking series to help other entrepreneurs come together and learn about what one another was doing to connect them to resources.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, and that's a great thing too. I definitely want people like that have heard what you're talking about now and really resonating what you're saying.
Yeah.
What can you give them just a quick insight into? I know we kind of like touch base on like what aKrewe is and the things that you're doing, but just giving them like that formal, like this is really what we're doing.
Absolutely.
And if this is, this is how you can get plugged into what we do at aKrewe.
Yes. Yeah. So as the CEO and founder of aKrewe NOLA Consulting, we are an impact-driven marketing agency that also has a social networking platform. So as I utilize my background in marketing and something that I love doing. I know we talked about that a little bit earlier, where I have some purpose-driven background in why I touched in the marketing industry. But aKrewe really zones in on the networking platform by helping entrepreneurs brand themselves, talk about themselves. I think one big thing in the entrepreneurial community is that people feel like they can't talk about themselves. And that's, I think, one of the last things you should be doing as an entrepreneur. You should be touting what you're good at. That's why you started your business, right? And so creating these spaces for people to come in, talk about themselves, talk about their brand and their businesses, and keep in the back of their mind by listening in between the lines how they can help other businesses and other businesses can help them.
Wow. Man, I wish we had an elevator in here because, man, that was the perfect pitch. I'll tell you that much. Well, if people are interested in this, where can they find aKrewe and like how do they get plugged in?
Yes.
What opportunities are available to them, that they can be looking out for?
So we have quarterly networking events. You can visit akrewenola.com/network to find out more information. And of course, that's aKrewe spelled the New Orleans way, aKrewe. And so our events are just really an opportunity for free-form networking to happen, people to come and connect in a low-stakes environment that's not high pressure. And they're able to sometimes see their first pitch competition where we'll have businesses that are selected by our committee to come and pitch their pitch their business on stage to a panel of judges.
That's awesome. Wow. I can't believe it. It sounds too good to be true. So everybody's got to get out there and check it out because that's what I'm saying. Well, awesome. Well, this has been fantastic.
Yes.
And then the last thing is just, do you any other socials or websites that you want to shout out before we kick it out?
Absolutely. So please visit our website, aKrewe NOLA, aKrewe.com, where you can join our newsletter list. You can also follow us on Instagram, at aKrewe NOLA. I'd like to definitely say if you ever come to attend one of our events, one of the premium perks is that you can get a free headshot. Thanks to our sponsor, Fodat Media, Fodat Booths. They are going to be on site at every event taking free headshots for people to make sure that they have a nice digital footprint online.
Yeah.
We have a couple other sponsors that we work with, theflyerkid.com, as well as Hot Soiree for all of our decor and design needs.
All right. Well, if that isn't a business perk, I don't know what is. So, anyway, thank you so much for joining us. And it's been another fantastic episode of Make Marketing Make Sense. See you next one.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning into the show. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. This episode of Make Marketing Make Sense is brought to you by Comfystone. If your business needs organic social media video content, video ads, or video podcasting, hit up Comfystone at comfystone.com and follow Comfystone on Instagram and TikTok. Until next time, this is Make Marketing Make Sense.